Greetings, my friends. I am Professor McDingle of the Florida University of Autism, and I've come because pretty soon we're going to be starting one of the most important rites of passage for every special needs boy, the rite of passage of playing Dungeons and Dragons. Now, Dungeons and Dragons, otherwise known as, well, the thing you do when you don't have a girlfriend, is the most popular pastime in the U.S. Next to dying of diabetes. Now, I have decided, we've already produced one video detailing how to play the game. However, that's only one single ingredient of the recipe of playing D&D properly. You see, with the help of my faithful manservant Hugo, who I bought from a slave market in Arabia about 20 years ago, I will now detail the lore of the world that our campaign will be taking place in. The world is called Amalure, and many centuries ago, it was created by an entity called Sithis. Now, Sithis was omnipotent. He was also very bored, and he said, you know what, I'm bored. I want to go make some things. He went and made some things. Go figure. However, those things were boring because there was nothing to go and inhabit the beautiful, magisterial environments he created. So what did he do next? Well, the next thing he did, he went and he created entities, which he deemed angels. However, here was the problem. These angels never done anything to earn their position in this beautiful magisterial world. They had simply just poofed into existence, like a weed or an orphan in China. So what had to be done next was this. He decided to go and make living beings with free will, who in turn could either choose to conform to his ideology and in turn earn their place in his kingdom, in his beautiful kingdom in the heavens, or could act like absolute dingbats and end up in hell being fucked in the ass by Satan, or this world's equivalent of Satan, that deity being the anti-deity Mortis. Now here's what happened. Along the way, Sithis had to go, and to create his world and the different races that would inhabit it, he went and created a variety of other deities, lesser deities, to assist him in the procedure. Each of these deities, in turn, went and made their own deities to help further expedite their own personal endeavors. And in turn, what you ended up with is a Greek-style pantheon with one archdeity, Zeus, aka Sithis, and many other lesser deities, a few top ones, which will be detailed in a document that will be released to you sometime after I release the location of the dead bodies of all the women I murdered. Please make a left, Hugo. I don't want you to die, not yet at least. Now, and a variety of other gods. And the existence of said gods is somewhat of the low-tier god, shall we say, like the god of pancake flipping or the god of trimming grass, is more flexible. There's many of them, almost countless of them, really. But they're all superseded by a group of higher deities determined by I, your DM. Professor McDongle, Dungeon Master, Professor of Autism and part-time sex trafficker. Oh, look, a cat. Now, going back. So, there's a variety of lesser deities, some high deities, and an archdeity. Many of these deities, because of the fact that they were created with free will, some of them went and stayed within Sithis' benevolent moral code. Others distanced themselves from it and became what we call the evil deities, chief among these being Mortis. Now, Sithis went and created a man who he intended to go and create something of a slice of heaven on earth, he deemed it, who he dubbed Atlas. And Atlas went, and guided by God, at least according to the official documents of his state, which may or may not be doctored, he went and he proceeded to go, he was a human, by the way, he went and proceeded to go and draft other humans to his cause. He went and conquered several important areas, and before you knew it, bada bing, bada bang, he became his small little state became, make a right, his small little state, Hugo's loyal but not too bright. Now, before you know it, his little fledgling state became an empire in its own right, and it continued to expand and expand and expand and expand and expand. Now, this is the main state of the game, and it's mostly made up of humans and dwarves. Now, there are recently, this faction, the Atlesian Empire, now we're waiting for the part where Hugo goes and steps on a cactus, and I have to go buy a new slave, ideally a Vietnamese one. because those ones, they follow instructions very well and they don't resist because they're too small to resist you. So, now, the Atlesian Empire has recently come into competition with a variety of other entities for control over a strategically important region called the Dune Lands. Now, the Dune Lands are an area roughly, I guess you could call it ecologically equivalent to the prairies of Texas or the mountain passes of Cyprus. And in this area, avoid hitting the nice lady, yes. In this area, the locale, I'm trying to multitask between speaking and keeping my friend over here from cracking his head open like an egg. So, the topography differs. There's mountain lands, there's deserts, there's all kinds of things. But the most important takeaway is that this area is notable because in the northern sector are several important gulfs and straits which regulate. And much like the Strait of Gibraltar in our world, they regulate trade. If you control them, by extent, you control virtually all trade in that area. Kind of like the Persian Gulf. Oh my God. Kind of like the Persian Gulf. So, and additionally, it's full of resources, both luxury and strategic, things like spices and iron, wood to build ships, iron to go and make weapons and armor, and of course, spices to go and put on your food. Moon sugar, aka Elder Scrolls version of cocaine. Good stuff, by the way, I know from experience. And there are three factions vying for control of this region. First is the aforementioned Atlesian Empire. Right, please. It is a constitutional, theocratic democracy wherein the empire is divided up into a variety of different, let's call them semi-independent states, kind of like U.S. states, with a degree of semi-autonomy, and over there the officials, like the governors and the whatnot, are elected. And please make it right again. While the governing authority of the entire state, the federal government, is controlled and appointed by the emperor. So it's kind of like the U.S., but instead of a federal government, you have an imperial government at the center. It is heavily militaristic and follows a rigid moral code based on their official religion of Scythicism, which the one thing that you need to know, the takeaway, is that Scythicism is a lot like, in its values and its doctrine, is very similar to medieval European Christianity or Orthodoxy. Its emperor as of the moment is very, very militaristic, yet at the same time fair and just, Emperor Alexios II Argyros. Now, as I was saying, it's a heavily militaristic state with a strong military tradition. Please make a right. At the center of their entire culture, much like the Byzantine Empire in our timeline, is the religion of Scythicism. Now, other things. The state is made up roughly, the Atlesian Empire is made up of 64% humans. And if you're wondering what they look like, no, there are no black people or chinks in this world. This is fantasy. We like to imagine the bad things in our world don't exist. So it's all mostly people in this empire. The humans look like, make it right, look like Eastern Europeans, mostly Southern Europeans, Italians, Greeks, Armenians, with a few South Slav-looking types mixed in. The rest are mostly dwarves, roughly 25%. Who are also Scythians. They follow the same religion, and they work very, very closely and form a sort of brotherhood with the humans of the Atlesian Empire, vis-a-vis their common faith and their common morals and way of doing things. Right, please. Yes. The rest are about 5% are halfling. There's 5% which are mostly because of the fact that the human and dwarf communities are quite close, they tend to intermingle, and there's been something of a hybrid race created of half dwarf, half humans, basically Armenians, really, really short, really, really stocky. Then you have about 1%, which is the miscellaneous other, and there's not many of them. Now, this state has certain laws. For one, it views all other countries as being inferior. And as such, it follows a glory of Rome type expansionist foreign policy, wherein it goes, conquers places, usually with immense ease because of how great its army is, then obliterates their culture, Caesar's legion style, incorporates them, then goes and makes sure to and assimilates them completely by breathing them out of existence. First, going and sort of playing with the demographics and incentives and whatnot to make sure that the birth rate of the humans and the dwarves is higher than that of the native populations of the regions that they conquer. That way, they can maintain the human-dwarf majority. That's all you need to know. A paper will be released on the server that will tell you additional information about the Empire, quite integral. But for due to time constraints, that's all we're gonna say about the Elysian Empire. The other state also in competition for this region is the Hagar. Now, the Hagar may sound like a strange sound you make when you're choking on shawarmas, and it is, but it actually, in this campaign, it means something different. Make it right, please. The Sultanate of Hagar is a conglomeration of different elven races and orcish slaves, which, operating under the orders of the leaders of their religion, the High Elves, go and perform certain feats to please their gods. Now, the state is mostly comprised of dark elves, but because of the fact that they displeased their goddess and their other gods through their very, very hedonistic lifestyle, the dark elves, originally were high elves, then were turned into dark elves and lost their connection to their gods, at least as far as their sacred texts are concerned. And as such, they had to use the high elves as their intermediaries, their prophets, their negotiators between themselves and their gods. And as such, the high elves, being the high prophets and the highest caste, the highest social class in the Hagar state, control all the power, and their word is the word of the gods, and by extent, the word of the law. Now, according to the religion of the Hagar, which is called the Way of the Gediye, is that each race was put upon the earth by the gods of Gediye to serve a particular purpose in a grand state. They cannot diverge from said purpose. They must all orcs must be soldiers, all Bosmer, all wood elves must be farmers, all dark elves must be assigned whatever role that the high elves assign them, and the high elves must be prophets and wizards, and de facto leaders of the state. They believe that non-believers should be killed and practice sort of Islam-style convert or die style proselytism. They are also in competition for the same region. Then we have a third state, which is not so much at war like the previous two are, but rather is a neutral party benefiting off the continuation of hostilities. This is called the Mangier Union. Now, the Mangier Union is basically if Las Vegas were a state and had a big-ass navy, that's what the Mangier Union is. It's a bunch of, big business tycoons with their own, with casinos at their capital who go and own something of a maritime trade thalassocracy, kind of like the Republic of Venice in our timeline. They go and and because of the fact that in the current state of war that exists between the Sultanate of Hagar, between the Hagar and the Elysian Empire, they're at war with each other, and as such they can't pass through the nomads' land without being attacked by the two opposing sides, by either the one side or the other. But who can? The Mangier Union can. Because of the fact that they are nominally neutral, at least, they can go and pass through without being attacked by troops of either side. All they are attacked by are the various bandits and warlords that inhabit the nomads' land area. They are a plutocratic, kleptocratic state whose only motivation is to accrue more wealth. Why do they need all this wealth, I hear you ask? It's very simple. You see, they're all fucking bald. All of them, and they want to accrue enough money through trade to go and finance research into how to cure baldness. It's the one common goal they all have. But other than that, they have no goal other than to go and make the Benjamin's baby, as the saying goes. As my mother used to tell me, go and make the Benjamin's kiddo or get out of my house. She was a very nice lady, up until I killed her. And there's no sort of and it's basically also the Mangier Union is effectively the anarcho-capitalist state that all libertarians think they want, but nobody actually wants it. It's just its only law is the non-aggression principle, no other laws. All right, and there are no social stratas. The only rule of the land is money, and the state is run by a council of various emissaries from the different trade unions. Now Now, in the dune lands, originally it wasn't terribly inhabited aside from a small stretch of coastline occupied by not much of anybody. Now, the Atlesian Empire, recognizing the importance of controlling the various straits along the coastal exterior of the region known to them as the dune lands, and equally the importance of controlling the natural resources in the interior for financing their various wars and fueling their economy, decided to go and send expeditions into the interior and found colonies along the coastal sectors. And for a time, these colonies were quite prosperous. Then, out of nowhere, a Columbus-style invasion came, in vast numbers, with no warning whatsoever. A vast enemy made up mostly of elves. This foe had never been encountered ever before. They just simply materialized from the edge of civilization at the very, very southernmost border of the Atlesian Empire, and began conquering everything in sight. And due to the fact that the Empire at the time believed that front to be secure, no enemies there, the defense of said front was left relatively scant, and the bulk of their forces had been deployed to go and fight wars on other fronts. And as such, in the beginning, the Hagar, as they would later come to be known, enjoyed a significant numerical advantage. City after city fell to them, villages, and then eventually even the straits. And then, yes, a military coup occurred in response to all the crippling, humiliating, Cannae-level, Waterloo-level military defeats that the Atlesian Empire had suffered at the hands of the Hagar. And a new dynasty, a new imperial dynasty came to power. The dynasty of the Ariyiri. A wealthy family hailing from the military aristocracy. They rose to power with their first dynastic ruler, Alexios II, who was helped greatly by his star general, Pyrrhus the Isaurian. Now, Pyrrhus the Isaurian reorganized the situation, went and launched punitive raids on other sectors of the Hagar to go and distract them. He also went and rapidly made peace agreements with various other states the Atlesian Empire was currently warring with, so that troop reserves could be relieved and moved to the Hagarian front. He was then able to go and match and eventually even surpass the Hagarians in troop numbers. After that, the straits were reconquered. Then the Atlesians pushed onwards and went back on their spree of reclaiming the lands that they had lost. However, the Hagarians had been working behind the scenes. They went and bribed various states along the periphery of the Atlesian Empire to go to war with them. As such, the Atlesian Empire was once again fighting a multi-front war, and no amount of shrewd diplomacy could stop it. Now, what happened then was that, understanding High General Pyrrhus, in all his wisdom, understood that the Hagarians had one major weakness. They were very, very poor at the logistical side of war, not very good at resupplying their armies. As such, they relied upon pillaging countrysides and going and looting storage houses to feed their large numbers of troops. So what he did was, he designated a large section of the frontier as a nomad's land. He went, burned down every village, burned down every city, salted the fields as they couldn't grow anymore. They couldn't feed livestock, and they couldn't grow fruits or vegetables there. And then he went and pulled out all the population and moved them to other fronts to reinforce those fronts. In this way, he created a vast no man's land between the two states. And this no man's land, in this way, whenever the Hagarians attempted to go and make an attack, they would find that by the time they had crossed the nomad's land, due to their poor logistical supply chains, by the time their attack reached Atlesian territory and the heavy fortifications at the edge of said territory, their army had already been reduced to about half its original strength due to starvation and sickness. However, the Atlesian Empire was not yet finished. In the meantime, many enterprising people from both states went and moved into this nomad's land, sensing an opportunity for freedom, or in other people's cases, an opportunity to go and try to help their state, be it the Hagarian state, or in most cases the Atlesian state, to help sort of conquer this untamed wilderness one by one, piece by piece. And so settlements were founded, semi-independent ones, some being completely independent, others ruled by local warlords, and others pledging nominal or complete allegiance to one state or another. Nevertheless, though, this region, the central dune lands and a few sections of its coast, effectively are experiencing a complete collapse of centralized authority. It's effectively a medieval European version of the Wild West. And due to the fact that there's no, police force or large armies patrolling up and down, due to the difficulty of policing such a barren stretch of area, there's nobody to go and regulate the activity of bandits and highwaymen, or to go and clear out dungeons and monster hideouts. And so this place is effectively, well, it's a complete state of anarchy. In this area, you, the players, will come. Some of you may be mercenaries, others may be ex-soldiers, come to try and help the Elysian Empire conquer back the nomads' land and eventually reach the Sultanate of Hagar slowly. Others may be simple people coming and looking for a way to make some money off other people's misfortune. Some of you may even want to try to form an independent state in the buffer zone between the two states. But no matter what you're trying to do, no matter what brought you to the Dune Lands, here's one inescapable fact. The two factions in this Cold War that has emerged between the two countries are now engaging in a sort of, arms race. Both sides is assembling its armies. Both sides is building warships, raising the calls for mobilization. All across the Elysian Empire, troops are summoned. A showdown is coming. It will be big, and it will arguably shake the world to its very core. It's coming. The question is, what will the landscape of the Dune Lands look like when that inevitable showdown does happen? Well, to find out, you'll have to play the campaign.